Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am with you on Sunday, August 2nd, in the year 2026 from beautiful, lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where it is twilight. It is sunset. It's beautiful. It didn't rain all day, but you thought it was going to rain. It was kind of dark all day. Anybody who thinks Costa Rica is sunny all the time, I'm sorry, it's not. This is rainy season, and even though it hasn't been raining, there are days when it's just dark. But it's still beautiful, temperature beautiful. But it is August. It is August in the year 2026. It is now August. And in these last days of July, we had a full moon. And you'll remember I talked about it last week on the podcast. And the moon was at 6 degrees Aquarius. And it was sitting right with Pluto at like 4 degrees Aquarius. And the sun and Jupiter were together at 6 degrees, 7 degrees. And it was really pretty powerful. I felt it very strongly, but I have the sun at 4 degrees Aquarius. So, of course, I was going to feel that. But I actually felt it was very energetic and it was positive, and it was energizing. You know, it was not a calm, sleepy full moon, let's go back to bed and get some rest. It was from those aspects, absolutely, it was going to be energetic. And I do want to say something, obviously, when we have these aspects, in any aspect, they're going to affect everybody's chart differently because of where your planets are. And maybe I've got the sun at 4 degrees Aquarius, and maybe you do too. Maybe you've got the same birthday I do, but you may be in a different year, and you don't have the same planets that I have. And that means you're going to take this differently. And also, when you are in a different place in your life, and the amount of work that you do on yourself and self-awareness you have and consciousness that you have on a day-to-day level is going to affect how these transits land in your life and what they're going to be like. And why I'm saying this is because I came across some things on social media that and I'm not on that much, but I do pay attention to what other astrologers are saying and what other people are saying about the astrology, et cetera, et cetera. And somebody was saying that they got tired of hearing that this was going to be the best day of the year. And I think it was the Sun-Jupiter conjunction that people really were pointing to as one of the best days of the year. And people were saying that these are like pseudo-astrologers. They're not really astrologers, and they were just taking these aspects that were, good aspects and like sort of making them to be much more than they are. In other words, not for everybody was this going to be the best day of the year. And that's true. You may have a completely different aspect going on in your chart that's making like some other day the best day of the year. And I happen to have planets that play into this dynamic of the full moon that we have. So I felt it very energizing, like I said. What I found interesting in this particular post, and I did comment on it even though I don't know these people and never saw them before, they were saying, well, people think they're astrologers just because they're looking at this full moon and they're saying it's the best day of the year and they think they're astrologers. And I said, this is going on 25 years ago. Because I would go to astrology conferences and talk to people who were, new to astrology, and they were walking around all puffed up, usually men. Just thought I'd throw that in there. That they are like astrologers. And I would come back and I would talk to Michael Luton and I would say, I was talking to this guy and he's like this and he's only been studying a short while. And he would interrupt me and say, and he's an astrologer, isn't he? And I said, yes. And so it's not social media that has brought this to the fore. It's been going on forever. People find astrology and think that they have found the secret to the universe. And there may be some very nice secrets in there, but there's plenty of other wisdom out there that's not astrology that has lots to do with helpful things in life, right? So I thought it was funny that they were saying, yeah, and all these people, and they're sort of saying that they're astrologers and they're not really astrologers. And are they even astrologers? Have they studied astrology? And I've run across people at actual conferences physically in my presence going on about like how much they know. And they hadn't lived through most of it, because they're either too young or they're they haven't experienced enough, they haven't studied long enough. And I'll never ever forget, and I've probably said this here before a million times, when I was first really studying astrology and I read something Robert Hand wrote, and he's like in his 90s now, and he's, that's a real astrologer, right? Written lots of books. Yeah. And he said, you don't know astrology until you know it in your gut. And I thought, yep, that makes sense. And I did not know it in my gut at that point. I was very young. So, I think that it's important to see the source of where the information's coming from. If you don't feel like you're having the best day of the year, don't blame the astrologer. You gotta, everybody's gonna be different, and you gotta look at your chart and look at where you are in your life. And it's so important to pay attention to what the transits are bringing you. That's why it's good to get your chart read, because, you want to pay attention to what is available to you to use toward transformation in your life, to create something new in your life, to open to a new cycle in your life, to prepare yourself for something that's coming that could be really intense. And it's not always the best day of the year when Sun and Jupiter meet. Pluto was involved in this. And when I went on Instagram the other day and spoke of this, I was talking about the magic because it is Jupiter, but it's asking us to sit with ourselves. When the moon is opening the door to the eclipse period and sitting with Pluto, we got to go deep. We got to sit with ourselves. We got to go within. We have to step inside and acknowledge what's happening within us. Okay, so, and that you do by following the trail of emotions, for sure. Like if you're feeling something emotionally and everyone's saying, oh, it's the best day of the year, and you're like, I don't feel great today, I woke up in a bad mood, go sit with that, because Pluto is rearing its head. This was opposite Pluto. Sun, Jupiter, yes, opposite Pluto. You can't ignore the Plutonian part of this. He's of the underworld, and he's retrograde right now, so he's in the underworld, and he's asking us to join him there when we have a full moon sitting with him. Okay, so yeah, it's a duality. Full moons are always a duality, but when they've got big planets like Jupiter and Pluto in opposition to each other, wow, that's really potent, and it requires a certain amount of introspection and contemplation to really use the energy to the fullest going forward. And these aspects stay with us for a few days. You might have felt it coming around the mountain a few days before, or you felt it a couple days later. Like Friday to me felt a little wonky. So we have to pay attention to how we're feeling and what this is bringing us and what it's telling us. So yeah, lots of things in that. So in any case, it is now August, and there are some big things going on this week. Once again, Chiron is going retrograde tomorrow, and I mentioned this last week. 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Chiron is retrograding, and it's in very early Taurus. And it's not staying in Taurus. It's going to stay in the next few days, and then it's going to go back into Aries again. And it's going to take quite a few months to come back into Taurus. Now, it's a planetoid, asteroid, whatever you want to call it, comet, that takes 50 years to go around the zodiac. So it does move fairly slowly. And we have one Chiron return. If we're lucky, we live to be 100, we get 2 Chiron returns. But it will take a long time to come back to Taurus next year. So once it, goes backwards a few weeks and then goes back into Aries, it's going to spend time in Aries, finish up its tour of duty in Aries, go direct, and then leave Aries eventually and go back into Taurus and stay there. So it's not permanently in Taurus. And I mentioned this when it went into Taurus a few months ago. I talked about the fact that it was not going to stay there, that it was going to go into back into Aries. So we're not finished learning the lessons of the wounded healer in the sign of the warrior. And there are wounded warrior groups in the United States and around the world, and organizations called Wounded Warrior, and those are really potent and powerful words, because where is that warrior wounded within us? And that is an opportunity to look at. And then once Chiron goes back into Aries, then we're going to have Saturn, Neptune, and Chiron all in Aries. Okay. So this is important to pay attention to. There's a lot of Aries energy about the self, about one's authenticity, about the warrior, and all its different identities. Okay, warrior in lots of areas of our lives. So, if you feel a little wonky these days, it could be the Chiron. So if something feels wounded and maybe is not so clear for you, sit with it, sit with the wound, do a little homework, emotional contemplation, journaling, meditation, breath work, all those good things, and reach out if you need to someone like me or another practitioner. Chiron can bring heavy energies with it. So we want to honor that and not try to sweep it under the carpet and think, Sun and Jupiter are still together. Yeah, they are. But Chiron is really like in a position of a white square with them. So let's honor Chiron in this process, right? The other thing that's happening that I want to talk about is that our Lady Venus is going into Libra on Thursday the 6th, and that is at 3:13 p.m. She goes into Libra, which is one of her favorite signs, and she loves that. She's going into one of her favorite signs, and she is going to stay there. Now, this is an interesting thing because, the inner planets, they go into these places once a year. The sun goes into Leo, and then it'll go into Virgo, and then it'll go into Libra, and here we are with the inner planets, and Venus is certainly an inner planet, and she's going to one of her rulerships. Okay, now this is very important. She goes here every year, but she's going here in early August. Okay, and that's important to pay attention to, because this is way ahead of the time she usually enters Libra, because Libra season doesn't start until the end of September, and then it stays till the end of October, and then we go into Scorpio season. So she's, not that close to the typical Libra season. And the reason we want to pay attention to this is because she's always close to the sun. The sun is Leo, 2 signs ahead of Libra. The sun is still in early Leo, not leaving Leo anytime in the next couple of days, leaving there in a few weeks. Just went into Leo. The sun is in Leo. It's one of its favorite signs, its favorite sign. And she doesn't stay that far away from the sun. So why is she 2 signs away? Because she's going to go retrograde. Now, I've mentioned this before. Venus will go retrograde. But the fact that she's entering Libra on Thursday is very important, because she's going to go into Libra. She's going to go through Libra, and then she's going to go into Scorpio. And she's going to fly through Libra and then go into Scorpio, and then start to get very slow. And she's not going to go very far into Scorpio. And then in October, she will retrograde in Scorpio. So this is something to really pay attention to, because she's going to go into Scorpio in September and spend a very long September not going very far. She's going to get to about 8.5 degrees. And that's not very far at all. That is not even the first third of Scorpio. So she's getting to 8.5 degrees, and on October 3rd, she's going to turn around at 8.5 degrees Scorpio. And October 3rd is 2 months from tomorrow. So she's going to, clearly, she's going into Libra this week, and she's not going to get very far between now and 2 months from now. So you can see the slowdown. She's been really fast this year, and then she slows down. And that's what happens when she's really fast and she catches up to the sun and passes the sun, and she can't be too far away from the sun. So on October 3rd, she retrogrades at 8.5 Scorpio, and then stays in Scorpio and then goes back into Libra. And she goes direct in Libra on November 14th. So that month and a half really in, retrograde, which is about her time, 6 weeks or so in retrograde. And then she's still in Libra, and she's going to be in Libra till the first week of December. We're only in the first week of August. We're talking about December. This is 4 months. So she's not really going to go back into Scorpio until the first week of December. And then she'll continue and pick up speed and really move forward and then go Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. But she's going to be in Libra this week, and she's going to pop into Scorpio for a little bit and then step back out and go into Libra and stay there till the beginning of December. So the real dates are that she is in Libra from this week till she goes into Scorpio, which is September 10th, stays in the very early degrees of Scorpio very slowly, turns around in Scorpio on October 3rd, and then goes back into Libra on October 26th, and then stays in Libra the remaining retrograde to November 14th, and stays in Libra again the rest of November until the first week of December when she goes in Scorpio. So she likes her own sign, but she does step into Scorpio. So the things we need to be aware of here is that she's going between the sign that is her rulership and the sign that is not her rulership. She's going into a sign that is opposite one of her ruling signs. Okay, so she rules Taurus, she rules Libra. What's opposite Taurus but Scorpio? And the opposition of rulership is the detriment of the planet, okay? Now you can say, I have Venus in Scorpio and I don't have I don't feel detrimental. Maybe you don't. Maybe you love that. But traditionally speaking, this is her detriment. Opposite rulership is detriment. Opposite exaltation is fall. So Venus is exalted in Pisces. She's in her fall in Virgo, the opposite sign. So if you have planets end of Libra, early Scorpio, you're going to feel Venus back and forth over these planets over those months. And it's asking us to pay attention to where the goddess is gracing us, or she may be stirring up a little bit of trouble. Venus in Scorpio isn't always trouble. It is the dark goddess, but she's not getting there till December, right? Really, she's going to step into Scorpio and then she's going to go back into Libra. Now, there's some things I want to say about this. My experience is I went back in my ephemeris. I looked it up, and I went back into my ephemeris of the 20th century, not the 21st century, the 20th century, all the way to the beginning of the 20th century. I looked it up, and Venus has retrograded in Scorpio the entire century. Okay, so this is not a new thing. She does this. Now, it's not every retrograde. She retrogrades in Scorpio, goes back into Libra, and then goes back into Scorpio when she's direct and finishes. But she's been doing this for like a century. So every 8 years. She's not doing this every year. She's not doing it every year and a half when she goes retrograde. She does this once every 8 years. So the last time she was retrograde in Scorpio and Libra was back in 2018 in the same time of year. Now, each time she goes backwards a little bit more. So in other words, last time, I'd have to look this up, but she was further on in Scorpio than 8.5 degrees. And then she went backwards into Libra. Now we're at 8.5 degrees. Maybe she was 10 degrees. Maybe she was 12 degrees. And she turned around. This time she's only going 8.5 and turning around. But the point here is she's moving back and forth between a sign that she rules and a sign where she's not at her best. And so we're getting two sides of the coin here. We're getting the light goddess and we're getting the dark goddess. And we need to pay attention to how we're feeling, to our relationships with other people. And believe me, the last two, Venus in retrogrades in the Scorpio Libra area of the zodiac, have been complicated. For me, they were complicated. There was a lot going on in these last two retrogrades where I was definitely dealing with death, literal death in my life, and it was heavy. It was really heavy. So I have an exalted Venus, so I don't have planets there, and maybe that's why, that's why it was so heavy. But I can tell you, she's not playing games when she's in this area of the zodiac. She is not playing games. So we have to really stay consciously aware when we're dealing with this, when we're feeling it, and we have to honor our feelings, no matter who we are. No matter whether we have planets there or not, we're going to feel something. And we're going to have more experiences of it if we do have planets there. You're going to get a direct hit. Maybe you have the sun in late Libra and you're going to get Venus back and forth over that. So pay attention. Look at your chart. Pay attention. This is a time to be very conscious. This doesn't happen but once every year and a half. It's not like Mercury where it's 3 or 4 times a year and we're like, that's a nuisance. But this is something more intense, especially in this area of the zodiac, and something that is asking for our attention and dealing with maybe some murky emotions during this time. Okay. And I mean, I can remember back to when she did this in 2002. So I remember 2018 and 2010 were definitely complicated for me. 2002 was complicated, but not like the other two. Not like the other two. So this has been, hopefully this will be a different experience, Now, there's something else that we need to pay attention to here. That is that Venus, since she's going to be in early Scorpio and she's going to be back and forth there, she's going to square Pluto 3 times. Okay, so not only is she in Scorpio, but she is squaring Pluto 3 times. Okay, so she's going to move into a square with Pluto on September 15th because she'll have newly been in Scorpio, and that's about 3 degrees. It's all going to happen around 3 degrees. So she's going to square Pluto then. Then when she goes into Scorpio retrograde in October, she's going to move back and she's going to square Pluto again around the 22nd of October. And then she's going to square Pluto again like the second week of December. Okay, so we're looking at 3 squares. 2 of them occur when she's direct. The one in the middle is when she's retrograde. So this is an extra flavor of fixed energy because Pluto's in Aquarius and Venus is in Scorpio. And she's really diving into the underworld with Pluto. See, the other 2 times when I talk about how I experienced death during those times, she wasn't squaring Pluto. So I don't know what this is going to bring. Back then, in those 2 times, Pluto was in Capricorn. So she wasn't in a square to Pluto. So this could be a much more, and probably will be, a much more intense experience of Venus moving through her retrograde phase because she's going to challenge Pluto 3 times. So I wanted to talk about this on this episode because I wanted to start bringing it to your awareness because we're moving into this. We're going to start feeling this and start knowing it and start experiencing some themes in our lives that have to do with this as she moves into her sign of Libra this week. Okay, we're going to talk more about this as the weeks progress. But in the meantime, this week we also have Mercury going into Leo. And I think that's a good thing. It's 12:28 p.m. Sunday the 9th, so a week from today. And I think this is great because it's been in Cancer for a long time, because it went retrograde in Cancer and was doing the dance in Cancer, and now it's finally moving away and moving into Leo. And so it's bright, it's sunny, it's got some pizzazz, some glamour. It's gregarious. So Mercury is going to be outgoing and talkative and fiery and passionate. And some passionate creative ideas could come to you during this time. It's Mercury. So this is really good. And I like that. Now it's going to square Pluto. Of course it is. Because, and that's not going to be till the following week. Once we get into the week of the 10th, then we're going to be seeing a different experience of Mercury when it starts to challenge Pluto. And so those kinds of challenges I'm not too worried about. That's not 3 times, that's just once. It's going to be a little sparkly. It's okay. So I feel like, that's a nice thing that's happening at the end of the week or in a week from now, and we can look forward to that. It's not in this very sensitive water sign. It's going to like get sparkly and go jazzy and be a little more fiery. So that's something to look forward to. The other thing is that the sun in Leo is trining Saturn this Thursday the 6th, the same day that Venus goes into Libra, and that's at 10:44 p.m. on Thursday the 6th. And this is great because it's a balancing of the energy. It's a very good flowing, practical, and maybe not so grounded because they're both in fire, but it's a good practical use of the sun's energy with Saturn, and they're talking nicely to one another, and they're having a good relationship and a good conversation. So I like that. I like, a nice conversation with Saturn instead of there being stress and duty and discipline and defeat. Which is what we were feeling back a few weeks ago when Saturn went retrograde, which was a little heavier and harder, I think. And I definitely had conversations with people during that time that were about, not feeling great, not having energy. Some of my friends were saying, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It's Saturn. It's Saturn. It's just my answer to all of that was it's Saturn. But let's see what happens this Thursday when we get the sun trine Saturn. It's at night, but you'll feel it all day Thursday and probably into Friday. And it's a good balance of energy, and it's good for productivity. Okay, that's something that's really handy. Our planets in the cosmic basket, our Pluto and our Neptune and our Uranus, they are all going to stay in a relatively smooth relationship to one another. They're not fast-moving planets, so they are going to stay for these next months around the range of 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees. Maybe Uranus will go back a little further because it wasn't in the sign as long as the others were. And so it's going to balance still each other. These energies are going to still balance each other, and I think that's great. And we can still gain a lot from these 3 outer planets in balanced relationships to one another. 1 degree apart does not throw the whole basket into turmoil or falling apart or anything like that. They're going to be in this nice dynamic with each other for months. And I like that. I think that's good. And eventually other planets they come in and they go out of this. For example, the moon is in Aries and it's now touching all of those planets. Tomorrow it's going to sextile Pluto in Aquarius. It's going to conjunct Neptune in Aries. It's going to sextile Uranus in Gemini. And then it's going to trine Jupiter later on in Leo later in the day, because Jupiter is moving on now. Jupiter's at 7 degrees. It's moving away from that 4-degree relationship, and it's not completely away from it. Like, I'm still saying Jupiter and Pluto are in opposition, but ultimately in these next weeks it's just going to really go out of aspect. But as long as these three planets are talking to each other in these lovely sextile and trine relationships, which are smooth flowing aspects, the moon is going to continue to touch them every week through one of the signs somewhere along the way. It will always land in a conjunction, whether it's in Aquarius, Aries, or Gemini, and to one of those planets. Then there's all the sextiles and trines, and then there's going to be challenges too. There'll be squares and things, but planets are going to continue to talk to them. And so in and out of the basket, the three planets will stay there and other planets will come in. Like we had the sun do this last week, right? So now, eventually when the sun goes into, say, Libra, it's going to be opposing Neptune, and it's going to still be talking to those other planets. So just keep an eye out. I'll be talking about it. They are really a greater consciousness raising place for us. Now, if you don't do any work, going back to what I said at the beginning of this podcast, if you don't do any work at all, they'll probably affect your life in some way. But it means the reason we do this is to take advantage of this energy and use it to raise our consciousness, to stay conscious in our lives every day, and to not let thoughts slip by us that we don't want to have, right? So these planets are giving us the opportunity, and trines and sextiles are opportunities. They are not slap upside the head, you better change. They are opportunities that are not forcing us, but are opening doors for us. And that's why we want to take advantage of this energy. What do you want to create? What do you want to evolve into? Who do you want to become? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be in your life? And, no matter how old you are, it's time to ask yourself these questions so that you can evolve into something deeper, and you can use this energy to do that, not just glide through it and say, oh yeah, that was nice. This is something big that we're not going to see again. So I highly recommend doing some consciousness work, getting your chart read. You could come to me or any other competent astrologer, and you can use this energy to evolve to a deeper, more rich experience of your life, and take these opportunities and notice when the opportunities come to you. It's staying in a place of abundance versus staying in a place of lack. And staying in a place of lack is like, well, why isn't it coming to me? Nothing came of that. I'm really bummed. No, you have to use the opportunities. Doors are going to open. You have to notice that they're there. Okay? So it involves our participation. And it involves our connection to something deeper evolving in our lives. So I would highly recommend to take this time and do something a little different, and ask yourself what you want your life to look like. What do you want it to feel like? Most importantly, feel. What do you want it to feel like? What do you want to feel every day when you get up in the morning? Do you want to feel beauty? Do you want to look out the window and say everything is just beautiful and gorgeous and I'm grateful for it? Do you want to feel love? Do you want to feel abundance? What energies do you want present in your life every day? And so this is an opportunity to make that happen. So use these energies to your advantage, and work with it and open doors with it. So yes, like I said, you can come see me and I can help you, show you where these energies are present in your horoscope, in your astrological chart, because there's at least 3 different houses that are receiving these 3 different planets, and they're probably bouncing off your planets as well. So I'm available. Come see me. Go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, click book online, and set up an astrology session with me. You can also book me through my Instagram. So I'm the Golden Astrologer there, and you can click book now in my profile and set up an appointment there. Maybe you're used to that more than you are going on your computer to a website. I do Reiki as well. Reiki can help clear up the energies, open the doors, clear any sort of discomfort that is hanging around your energy field. The Reiki is beautiful. It's lovely. It also, reveals information to you that we don't know before we have the session. So that's in my website as well. And if you want to go longer with me, you could go into expansion mentoring, which is 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months. And you can contact me about that. info@thegoldenastrologer.com or deb@debmcbride.com. I thank you so much for listening. It has been a beautiful time, and I thank you for spending time with me in this way, listening to my podcast. And certainly drop a line to me if you want, and tell me your experiences of what the cosmic basket is doing, how you're feeling now that the eclipses are rolling around. They're coming in, and the energy, I think, is going to start getting more intense as we move forward in these next days, and then the week after is when we have the eclipse. So get ready, get set, and stay tuned to the Golden Astrologer podcast as we go through eclipse season together. Thank you so much for listening. Have a blessed and beautiful week.